Okay, this is the Real Guardian, and viewer discretion is advised with this what if because of some of the elements in the story. Now, I'm re-recording what if Deku was a conduit from Infinite's second son due to the fact that I came back from hard labor breathing too heavily and I talked too fast, so I'm going to try my best to fix that. And some people have pointed out recently, well, why do you breathe so much in your videos? Well, I have a really sensitive old mic I'm using because that's all I got. I have this Chromebook and this old mic. Reason why I have a Patreon is so I can support the channel and me financially. So if you want to help me, start being a Patreon. Seriously. Okay? Now, special thanks to John Sonetta. If I butcher your name, I apologize. You're being credited in the description. Now, let's get this started. In a lab that's hidden in the woods where a young green-haired boy was brought to, as he was then thrown into a cell. As the door shut behind him. Now, as this was happening, four girls of different age walked up and carried the boy to a small bed in the cell. As the young boy awakened to see a girl with black hair, pretty golden eyes, and cat ears touching and feeling around his chest as he tried to get up, and her saying, "Don't move. These wounds will reopen. They're still fresh." As he looks down to see where he was stabbed just very recently, with needles and scalpels and everything. Then he just admitted, saying, "You're right. So what's your letter and number?" She then saying, "It's B43. And then he said, "Well, mine's D24. Nice to meet you. Love this cell better than the old one I was in." And then he smiled, causing B43 to smile. Then three other girls showed up, as one saying, "Hey there, I am Y11." As this girl with long, flowing blonde hair, purple eyes, sticked out a robotic arm, and D24 shaked it, saying, "Nice to meet you." As then a young girl with black hair and having red at the tips, plus having pretty silver eyes, saying, in a bubbly voice, "Hey there, I'm Y11's sister, and mine is R13. Nice to meet you." As then he shook her hand as well. As then the last girl, who had white hair with a scar over her left eye and had pale blue eyes, saying, "I am W82. It's nice to meet you, other slave mate." And then he just grinned and shaked her hand. It didn't really bother him. Then they asked, "So who sold you to this hell?" As D24 said, "It was my parents. I was quirkless. My sister had this amazing pyrokinesis quirk. So they just sold me. Plus, they've been experimenting on me for the past 6 months, I think. Hard to tell. It's been one long day for me at this point." And then he said, "So how about all of you?" As they said, "Same, but we've only been here for 5 months. Our quirks were useful for experiments." And then D24 asked, "So, what are they?" They all said in unison, "If we get out of this place alive, we will tell you, okay?" It's then a man in a green, yellowish coat and hood, with these blue orb-looking things covering his chest, as he was just dressed in normal pants and boots, approached the cage, saying, "Why, hello there, you five. It seems you're getting to know each other. That's very good. For I have great news for four of you, that being B43, R13, W82, and finally, pretty little Y11. Your quirk enhancement test have succeeded, so you'll be sold off soon, in about 5 months to the highest bidder, while you, D24, will get ready for some more experiments." As he then starts walking away, with D24 kidding up, saying, "I will survive this and free everyone. I can, for I am not as weak as you think I am." And the figure turned, smiled, saying, "I know you're not." As then he walked away, with the girls then knocking him in the head, saying, "Are you stupid? You just signed yourself up to death." Then he said, "I know, but he personally sees all over my experiments, because the big cheese treats me as his new pet project. His name is Jaden. So I have some protection in this place. I think that's why they put me in here now. This is known as the complete wing. It's in projects that are finished or nearing completion go to. So as long as we're here, we'll get better beds, better food, better treatment. So they won't beat us. Since they gotta protect the feature merchandise or merch. As all the girls in asked, "Wait, how do you even know any of this?" Them saying, Being a pet project has its perks. After all, before I'm experimented on, I have to help that particular jackass with his reports. And particular jackass with his reports and files. And he wants it all to be filed properly. And so I do not want it. So do you want any more info I got? So they ask, so what's going on in this place? He says it's a place to test quirkless people and people with any quirks. They do various experiments, and once you're considered complete, like it says, you're sold off. But they also make these things called perfect catalysts and are sent somewhere privately. I don't know where, though. Failures are disposed of as usual. Anything else? They said that's okay, makes sense, but really, why are you his current project? As then D24 respond with, don't really know. But it seems I'm a unique being in this world, as he says, as he always calls me a conduit. But honestly, I thought those things were dead. Great. I'll see you guys soon. As they all tilted their heads in confusion. It's time for my next batch of tests. I know it. As then a guard with Jaden then appears walking in and grabbing D24. We now cut to a lab with an elderly man holding a spear, saying to Jaden it's almost ready, including the battle subjects. As then Jaden smiled, saying, that's good. Now, how do you grade this boy? In power. As he pointed to D24 laying on a table with IVs hooked up to him while he's being shocked, jammed with needles, basically being tortured as he is screaming with all his might and enduring it. As the elderly man saying yes. He's the last of his kind, I believe. He only survived this because he was a conduit. And once the spear is done, and the DNA alterations we have put him through have finished, he'll be the perfect weapon. Not only to sell, but to end heroes. As then Jane smiled, saying, good. As we cut to D24, as they finally stop their test, as he was in a near state at this point. His medical staff is quickly trying to save his life because he's Jaden's pet project. But a guard just got up from the position and shoved him all down to the ground, threatening him with his quirk, saying, why are you wasting time on saving him? His luck to be alive is just luck. As then he tries to squeeze the life remaining out of him. But he was thinking to himself, this one thing has made me worthless in the eyes of Master Jaden. I was once one of his pet projects. Now it's this thing? I may be a guard now thanks to Jaden's kindness, but I'll not give up on my possession as a pet to others. As they were trying to get him off of D24, but then Jaden said, so, you want to die that bad, my former pet? So be it. As then he punched the guard, making a hole where his heart once was. He then said, get that boy healed. He has a busy day tomorrow. As then Jaden leaves. We cut to him as he's sitting in his office as he's coughing up blood. The young white-haired teenager then walking in, using her quirk to help him, saying, I know this is for the fate of the world, but I wonder what they would have thought or what they have said for what you have done. As then Jaden said, if it was for the peace of the world, to save it, I will become whatever I need to be. For now. As the young white-haired teenager then said, all right, master, so is he finally ready? As then he smiled, he will be tomorrow. As he then saying, my master, my friends, everyone I hold it dear once in this world, forgive me for what I must do and will do from now on. As we cut back to the cell, as they throw D24 into it, and as the girls just quickly run up and carry him to one of the beds again, laying him down. As they all look at him, and then Y11 particularly said, he's beyond lucky. Most people don't survive how long we survived, especially 6 months. Most people I heard that were without quirks, they died in the first month or the first week. Plus, I just heard from a passing guard a little while ago. Apparently, one of them tried to kill him. As he said, it involved Jaden's new pet. And Jaden just killed that guard without mercy. What kind of monster in this world does this? But D24 started to stir again as he got up, saying, "Well, at least this time I woke up to beautiful girls." As he started to laugh, but he started to cough up blood. As then W82, oddly enough, pushed him quickly back down, and she was blushing a bit, saying, "Lay back down, idiot. You're in too bad a condition to do that." He then said, "I know." "Well, okay. Do you want to know my plan?" They all look at him confused. What kind of plan? See, as I was going in and out of consciousness earlier, after broken up, talking with Jaden and an elderly man, I found out the last experiment on me is going to happen tomorrow. After that, I will fight 4 people, and if I win and live, I'm complete. So that means we have to get out then and there. So, when I get back, be ready to overthrow the guard, okay? As he then pulled out a needle, saying, "I swiped this as they're treating me. It is a very powerful sedative, and once it's in the bloodstream, it'll make anyone pass out extremely quickly." Then he smiled, as they all nodded their heads, as they said together in unison by putting their hands together on top of each other. So, tomorrow, death or freedom. As then Jaden was watching it, all saying, "Good, he can do this. Now, it's time for me to give him that power." As he then pointed to the white-haired teenager, saying, "Get ready to leave this place. It's going to blow up soon." As he started to smile. "Now, once they get out of that cell, they're home free." With her then saying, "How do you know they'll get out of this place at all?" With him smiling, "I know. There's a reason I put them all together." As we now cut to the next day, this D24 is being pulled out of his cell, and he's brought to a room. This was the room that was set up to deal with nuclear level protection from blasts. As thanks to everything I as D24 have read, thanks to the files, I know where I am. But it's weird. Why is there a chair here? As he was then brought to the chair and strapped into it. As then he sees people around him, completely in blindfolds, with bags over their heads, tied and bound. As he realizes, wait, these are what the people are, the catalyst people, he said. Those reports. There's thousands and thousands of them. As then he shudders in fear for what might happen to him now. As then the elderly man walked in with a spear, placing it on him and making sure he was holding it. It's in the door locked. As the elder man then screamed, "What are you doing, Jaden?" As then his voice can be heard, tying up a loose end. As then the spear opened from its closed state as it was still in D24 hands, as a massive explosion happened. As D24 thought, if this was a city, it'd be 5 to 6 blocks. It sadly, when the flash cleared, the only thing remaining was D24, and the elder man somehow barely survived it. As he looked around to see all the people gone, the room in complete destruction, as he heard Jaden's voice finally saying, "Good, you're awakened, and you have awakened your power. Now touch that man." As he then did this, since he didn't have a choice, as D24 felt something very weird, as he saw the past flash before his eyes. As he saw the elderly man in his youth preaching about the importance of former conduits of the old way, how we evolved from them to be the quirk society we are now, and that their power was greater than what we owned today. But people were ignoring him, passing him by, treating him as a quack. Then I saw Jaden. He walked up to him, offered him a job, and told him he could help him fulfill his research, because he knows where a conduit still lives, but he just hasn't been born yet. As he just agrees to it with joy. As then he comes from the back from the flashbacks. to where he was, seeing the man had sadly finally passed away to the injuries. As Jaden said, "Well, I have a surprise for you then." Even though D24 knew what was about to happen, he said, "There's going to be 4 rounds of fighting. If you win them all and live, you're considered complete." As D24 realized the floor beneath him started to raise, as he was entering some battle ready room, he thought, as then a machine approached him, slapping a collar around his neck, as it then grabbed and pushed him out, and he entered this arena area. As then Jane's voice announced, "Well, it's time for round 1. As we introduce H600. As then an older bald-headed man came out, then seeing the young boy and smirking, then saying in a sarcastic tone, "Sorry, kid, but you're gonna die today." Then Jaden said, "And now with D24 here, are you ready?" As they both nodded. As he said go, as then H600 poofed into smoke, then appeared right in front of D, grabbing his neck, saying sorry, "But you're gonna die," as he squeezed the life out of him, smiling with glee. As D was trying his best to survive, as then he grabbed his face with his hand. And as he did it, it happened all over again. He saw part of this man's life, see him using his own smoke work to kill his boss, saying to him, "See, this is why you don't treat people like trash," as he laughed. Then see him going on a crime spree. Being stopped by 2 heroes, he screamed out the names Eraserhead and Mike, as he watched him fight the heroes. But as he was doing this, as he was watching them fighting, he understood how to use H's power, and not only copy his fighting moves and techniques, but the heroes as well. And it's instantaneously. He then comes back into reality. I was thinking to myself, "I need to free myself. I have to do it now." As then D turned into smoke and appeared behind H, with him saying, "What? You just have some copy power. That's not impressive." As then D shot smoke and embers at him, blinding him. As he turned into smoke again, then peered beside him, kicking him in the, sweeping his legs. As then he punched him in the gut, then poofed away in smoke again. As he found a chain just hanging in the room, as he then ripped it off with ease and tying it to his arm. As then H is getting back up, saying, "You may have my power, but you don't know how to use it," with D just smirking. As he poofs back in, using the chain and infusing it with burning ash of smoke. As he then wraps up H in it. Then he slams him into the ground, as he then realizes that his strength has dramatically increased. As he then whips him up into the air, as then he jumps, kicking him into a nearby wall. And as he lands back down, D then punches him with all his might, pounding him into the ground, knocking him unconscious. He then heard Jaden's voice saying, "Good." As then H600 was being violently shocked, as it caused him to convulse rapidly. As D was then screaming, "Stop, you're killing him." Jaden saying, "I told you to live. He's now considered a failure, so you know his fate." As then the body just stopped, as D wanted to cry but couldn't, because he had to survive. Jane saying, "The next fight." As then a young woman came out. "This is A470. It is time to fight. Are you ready?" As then they both nodded their heads, as the room changed from the arena, where now there was extra walls hanging around them. And they began. A470's eyes turned into these rainbow colors, as then she shot neon out of her hands, blasting at D, as he turned into smoke to dodge it. But just as he reappeared, she dashed, as she was like light bouncing off of everything, even the walls. Then she punched him in the gut and sent D flying back. She seemed to smirk, as then she moved even faster than she did before, punching him down to the ground and flicking back. Then Dee thought, I'm going to die. Getting back up, as then she blitzed forward. As Dee got back up, as then she blitzed forward. As she then grabbed him with her hand, as she created Neon in her other hand, readying for the final blow. As then he did it like last time, he quickly grabbed her face. As he saw her life, he realized she was a former vigilante, and she was hunting down villains and killing them. As then he sees her hanging out with friends, and later to see them all dead. Then it finally cuts to some heroes stopping her. They're saying the name Mirako. Her screaming, "You won't stop me like last time." And like before, I'm copying everything. Not just from A, but from the heroes too. Understanding her power. As then he turned his eyes into rainbows, and then he turned his chain into a neon sword, cutting her hand off that was choking him, as she screamed in pain. Going back, as he then blitzed around the room, using the hanging walls to build up momentum. And as soon as he got enough, he then stabbed her, forcing her to the ground hard and punching her out cold. But sadly, the same thing happened to her too. As Dee just gritted his teeth, knowing he had to survive. Then Jaden said, "Good. Now, on to the third round." As a young man has come out, as the TVs drop down into the arena. As then Jaden announces, "But before that, a friend of mine, a doctor, is here to help you, Dee." As then this man in a lab coat walked out, as he said, "He told me you could have this." As then he grabbed the boy's hand. As then he sees his life. He was deemed to be useless by his quirk alone. That all it did was combine things. But it didn't deter him. He figured out what to use it for, as he made drugs and poisons the world had never seen. But he used it for the wrong reasons, and he got arrested, even being thrown into Tartarus over it. As then Dee came back to reality, as the man had already walked away. Jaden saying, "That was a free gift from me to you. Now, this is E224. Dee laughed and looked at the man a bit, then realizing, 200 more than me, huh? The voice then saying, "Ready?" as they nodded. Then they fought, as he created what looked to be digital video streams in his hand, as he summoned 3 blades from behind him, and he launched them all at Dee, as he dodged them, but they were still holding on to him. So he turned into smoke, and then launched Neon at him. Excuse me. But it seemed it was pointless, as he would then turn into pixels and warp around the room, going in and out of basically everything, even the TVs. As the blades had finally disappeared, as he then slashed at Dee, and was cutting him pretty good because he had formed red claws around his hands. As then Dee realized, wait, with that new power, this is what I could do. He then combines the smoke with the neon, making a bomb. Then he tossed it down, causing E to choke and be blind at the same time. As he then just dashed up and grabbed his face, realizing that he was actually a former hero who went villain. Because he never got past being a sidekick, he got so angry and enraged that he turned around and killed the very pro-hero and teacher that had been with him all his time. Then he started to use his power to kill not just other heroes, but take the lives of many people along the way. But thankfully, Hawks and Ryu stopped him and threw him into Tartarus as well. As before, he was understanding his powers, the fighting abilities, the heroes. It was like he knew everything in a moment. As then he came back, summoning a blue sword out of his hand and slashing with him, as he sent him flying back. As this was happening, Dee dashed forward, realizing with the new power it granted him wings that made him just as fast as him. But as he was dashing forward, he then combined the smoke and turned into smoke, being even faster than he was before, as he then formed neon around his hand, and then quickly punched him in the face and straight down to the ground as hard as he could, knocking him out. The same thing happening again, as D is just angered by all that's happening. But then he realized he was getting more flashbacks from the elderly man and everyone else. As then he realized he absorbed the elderly man's power as well. Apparently, it let him learn at accelerated rates, and when he mastered it like he did, it became instantaneous. And because of that, I have the ability to learn everything instantly too. As then D thinks, but I have other improvements as well. I can move around more better, as I'm not slowed down. I feel more agile in this sense. I can take more hits than I ever could before, and I was already durable enough to survive those experiments. I'm also healing at an accelerated rate, as these slash marks are almost all gone already. Plus, I have amazing amounts of stamina because I'm not even tired right now. The adrenaline's probably helping. As he was thinking to himself, and realized this power, this conduit ability he had, he could be called Quirk Sponge, because when he touched someone, in a sense, he was making a copy of their quirk, but learning their past and making it his own. Then Jaden finally said out loud, "This is the final fight, then, young boy." Then this older woman came out, with him saying, "This is B-890. As then he says, "Ready," as they nod. She then quickly fires concrete strapple, nailing him both in the arm and legs, causing him to be stuck there because he can't move. Even though it doesn't hurt as worse than the experiments, it does immobilize him. She then walks up saying, "I am so sorry for this. I must break my morals, but it is because I need to survive. My child." And she then grabs him, but he smirks as she looks confused as she quickly grabbed her arm that was exposed. As then he saw her pass and was actually quite happy to see this one, that she was actually a retired hero, and Simitas, someone he had researched about. This was his actual grandmother too. That's so cool, he thought, as he saw her train him to be more powerful, and she was proud of him as he was truly carrying on their family's tradition. And as before, he knew what to do, but he also realized he could use her power to at least save her at the most. So when he reawoken, he shot the shrapnel out of his arms and legs, which totally surprised her. As then he poofed into smoke and combined the concrete as he phased through her, as it shoved into her throat, causing her to gag and cough, as he just quickly swiped her legs and covering her in concrete. And as he was doing it, covered the shock collar completely as well, to make sure she was safe. As then he heard Jaden's voice with clapping, so loud it was irritating. That was amazing, but you're at your limit. Then D-24 thought to himself, he's right. I absorbed all those powers at once. It's a bad idea. The drawback of my ability is it drains me heavily when I do this. But the adrenaline was keeping me from realizing it. As then he hit the ground, the giant saying, "Go heal him. Make sure he's completely functioning and brought back to his cell. And those bombs, make sure they're ready. It's time to say goodbye to this place. Oh, and make sure you leave that proper info I want for her." As I knew he would project that last one once he got that power. As he cut to the arena, as the white-haired teenager has already healed D and he's fully awake, and then he sent him away. As there's a place in the concrete that she knows is a small opening. As she then tucks something into it wrapped up. As we now go to the cell, as he threw in D24, but before the guard could leave, all the girls jumped on him, as one of them finally got to his neck and stabbed him with a needle, as he just collapsed because of how quickly the sedative worked. As they all looked at each other once this had happened and nodded, and started to run. As D saying, okay, we're on the east end. To get out of here, we gotta climb about 3 floors and get to the center. There's a big door, and then when we get out of it, we're home free. They're sneaking around, and D was even using his quirk to help them sneak around. But as they got up to the second floor, they heard a loud sound. As then D realized, crap, something must have set off an explosion. As then saying, sneak, be careful, but if we're caught, we have got to be ready for a fight. As they all nod. As then we see in the chaos, as everyone's trying to grab everything they can, as then the door to the front entrance is not opening at all. It's been blast sealed. As they're screaming they're dead, people are using quirks and only denting it, so it's basically pointless. As then many of them realize, wait, there's still a helicopter pad. As all the guards and staff that remained on the upper floor started running up to the roof. As they got there, they saw Jaden entering the copter as it was ready to take off. Now they tried to run up to get a spot in that copter, but a black-haired man stepped in, sitting on the side of the copter. He used his quirk, as then everyone just died right then and there. As then he turned around, saying, so, what now, boss? As Jaden said, now we wait. I know those children will survive. Plus, we've killed most people here. Everyone on the lower floors and upper floors are now gone. Thank you, by the way. Now, all they have to worry about is the middle, but not for long. As he presses the button, we cut to the kids as they try to sneak around some guards that had gotten to the entrance to be home free. But they were unsuccessful as they pointed their guns at them, saying, sorry kids, but you're now just gonna die. As then they fired a barrage of bullets. D formed concrete armor around the girls. He's turned to the smoke, blitzing around them, using his chain with the ash to melt the guns as he wrapped it up in them. As he was doing this, he would summon swords to stab someone in the chest. Then he realized a better method. He combined the neon and smoke power again. But this time, he made it where, as the smoke was hitting them, it would phase the neon bolt, as it would hit like a vital organ. And all of them started to fall. As an explosion behind them happened, as he realized this place was about to blow. So, where it was about to come in through the door, where it was about to come into the room through all the doors, he formed concrete doors, encasing the explosion, buying them some time. As he drops an arm, saying, come on. As they all ran to the door, slamming it with their powers. But it's not budging. As B then tried to get the door open with door controls, but saying it was useless, they're not working thanks to the blast doors. And D said, let me. As he turned his fists into concrete, and he then phased through it, combining all 3 of the other abilities, so he realized he could do that with the smoke. As then he started to peel the door away, and when it finally started to give, it finally gave enough that they could run out, and they got as far away as they could, as the lab finally exploded in hellfire. As they all stopped, breathing heavily but laughing. They realized they were alive, but they also realized what were they going to do. As then D finally spoke, first, we need to find a safe place to rest. Then we'll figure out more tomorrow. Second, we need to give each other names now. Because honestly, I'm abandoning my old one. That family does not deserve me. They all looked and nodded. As then B43 spoke up first, saying, I will be Blake. R13 then said, I'll be Ruby. And Y11 said, I like Yang. And Y18 saying, I will be Weiss. Then D24 responding, I like the name Desmond. That's what I'll be. As they all nodded, reintroducing themselves with their new names. So they went out of their way to find a place to stay, finding a very big cave, as the rest of them entered and rested in it. As we cut back to the building, as deep in the rubble, a figure had come out, being BA9 890. And she's saying, I'm only alive because of that boar. I wish I could thank him. He would have made a great hero. But she finally realized there was something wrapped up on it. And she realized it was a note and there was a flash drive with it. With a note saying the boy and 4 other girls are alive. This is the info on what has happened here that I could get. Signed, a friend. Then Jaden's copter landed on top of some mansion in the city. As he started walking down to an office, as people greeted him. Once he got in there, he sat down on a chair. Then said, well, it seems to me I was right. They made it out. So Desmond is your new name? Now, how will you change the future? He smiled. With that, this is the end of What If Deku Was a Conduit from Infinite Second Son. I'm hoping this one is much better, and I've tried my best from now on to read these more slowly. Okay, you guys have a great day. This is The Real Guardian.